And the more that you hunt for those places, the more you use these external situations and influences to explore your own landscape, the more freedom you have from what other people are doing. We've all come here with a divine purpose, traveling on a stream of cosmic dust from the stars into our mother's wombs, born into this precious life. It is no accident that you are here, my love, on earth, in this moment, in this body. You are here longing to find your place, to align with your purpose, to embody your passions and to live into the dreams of your heart. Yet so often we get caught, suspended in the tangle of life, not able to move forward, not able to find solace and comfort in a world that has forgotten the truth of our existence. As we begin to remember, as we peel back the layers, as we come together to uncover our unique gifts and reconnect with our authentic selves, we are able to see another way of being, a new possibility, a different life waiting to be lived. I have experienced on this complicated and wild journey of life that when we connect with the story of our soul, it will show us the magic of this life that we have been missing. It will open a window into the very heart of who we truly are, of who we came here to be, and gives us answers to our ever-asking why. Hello, beautiful, beautiful souls. So good to be here with you during this time of the year as things are slowing down, as the weather is really getting colder, and in some parts of the world, creating more time and space where we are inside, hunkered down with ourselves, with the swirling that is happening in our world at the moment. And I hope that as you listen to this conversation and these podcast episodes, that you can really find that place in yourself that is home, the place that is your soul, that is calling you forward, that has brought you to this moment, right? Listening to this conversation, knowing that there's something deeper happening for you. There's something that is coming alive within you, that part of you is coming on board, is lighting up, even in this dark time of year. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing. It's in the willingness that we change our lives. Things can seem hard. They can seem unattainable. They can seem impossible. And yet I have always found that when I do the thing that is the most unlikely to succeed, that is the hardest thing for me to choose, that is the thing that makes me the most afraid and the most on fire, is the thing that will take me where I want to go. It's the thing that has brought me here to the person that I am, doing what I am doing. But it took that willingness. It took that stepping out into the incredibly uncomfortable moments and knowing that I hold within me all that I need to keep moving forward. And you, my love, hold that same resilience within you. You hold that same light. You hold that same love. And I know that you can. So as we move into this conversation, Bethany is here with us today, and she has been in a romantic relationship for the last 3 years. She knows that her tendency is to self-sabotage and to push love away. And for all this time during her relationship, their time together, she has done a ton of personal growth work, of spiritual work. She sees she's changing. And yet she's here wanting to understand this next iteration of her relationship. She is learning to set boundaries. She is learning to show up differently. And inside of this, it's creating a lot of uncomfortableness with the relationship. And so she is wondering, is this related to the new boundaries she's setting? Or is she just getting into a deeper layer of her self-sabotage? Or maybe even this is not the right person for her and she's just trying to make something work that has run its course. So this is a really beautiful dive into this, and what we uncover and look at is the importance of having shared values and a succinct level of devotion to common goals and interests with the people that we choose to spend our time with and bring into our life and into our world. We look at what happens energetically as we move from our 20s to our 30s to our 40s, and how the flow of our life force changes, what we are committed to, and what we choose to protect within ourselves. And this changes, right, as our life advances, as different things become more important to you. We dive into this idea in how important it is to look for the story about the perceived problems that you are facing, and how to understand the ways that you have learned to try to soothe your uncomfortableness, and really reflecting on, are they healthy? Is this in support of who you are becoming? We look at that when you are judging others, ultimately, you are only judging yourself. So the freedom comes from turning towards yourself and exploring, rather than trying to get someone else to change or someone else to admit that this problem that you are inside of is theirs to solve, right? It's yours. You are the one that holds the power. And we look at, if you don't handle your problems inside of your current relationship, right? If you just run away from the relationship, wanting to blame the other person, wanting to blame the circumstances that you're inside, you will ultimately recreate your next relationship with these same problems to solve. This is the beautiful cosmic joke that we live inside of, right? Our souls come here to learn. And if we don't learn what we're intended to learn, then we'll just recreate it until we have learned it, because we don't want to waste this life. Our soul has a mission. Our soul has an agenda. It has a story that it has come here to live out. And the more we resist it, the more we hang back, the more we deny it, we'll just end up having it play out. And if we don't do it in this lifetime, well, guess what? You'll be right back here next time, same story, same circumstances, trying to figure it out again. And I am of the mindset, let's just do it now, right? Our souls are here to advance. We want to grow. We want to expand. And the earthly human realm is an incredible place to do it. So think about these things as you listen to this beautiful call with Bethany. I love you. Hi, Bethany. Welcome to the podcast. How can I help you today?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me on today. I have, I guess, a messy question. I have been dating a guy for 3 years, and for most of the relationship, I have been kind of self-sabotaging. Receiving his love has always been hard for me because of childhood things. And I am wondering, I've been doing a lot of internal work and a lot of shifting and working on boundaries and actually getting in touch with what I want and what I need. And I'm wondering if we're in a very different place right now. And I'm wondering if I'm still acting in a way that's self-sabotaging. Am I just being uncomfortable because I'm setting boundaries? Or is this just not the right person? Or, yeah, I'm just trying to get a feel for which direction I'm floundering in, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. When I feel into you, there's a tightness right in your chest. And the way the image is coming forward is there's a rose. And roses are a very significant symbol in energy. And when I see this rose in you, it's a red rose. It's the stem is really strong and straight, and the leaves are really bright and vibrant. And yet, as we come up to the head of this rose, it's dying, like it's wilting. It's got some black around it. And I feel this is like the stem is like the structure, right, that you're creating with all this work that you're doing. this new vitality that you're bringing in, this newer relationship with life, and it feels quite vibrant and supportive. And then when we move up to the imagery of the part that's dead and dying, it's like this part of you that's still in transformation, this part of you that used to sustain you because it's all you knew. But now you're changing so much. You're really invested in who you are. And so any symbol, any identity, any part of you that used to be attached to or part of your older way of being is dying and shedding and making way for something new to come forward. And even as we're talking and we're shedding light on this, some of the petals are falling off. They're like, oh, thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for knowing that this is the process I'm inside of, because I was a little bit scared and didn't really know what I was supposed to do next. So I'll offer that to you. I'd love to hear your reflection or how you connect to that.
I thought it was interesting because as you were like, I feel this tightness in your chest. And I was like, yeah, that was wild. That was exactly what I was feeling physically when I was asking the question. I think there's a little relief there for sure about the still in transition. So that is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So the word that stands out, right, is boundaries that you brought into the conversation. And sounds like you have been really learning and exploring and implementing boundaries that are new, are different. I get this sense of you trying certain things on, as in, like, okay, this is how I learned this way to set a boundary. I'm going to try that out and see what happens. And then there's a kind of regrouping, regathering, and then, okay, here I'm going to try it in this area. And okay, now I'm going to try this way. And so I feel like you're in this experimentary type of experience with these boundaries. And if you care to share, I think it can be helpful to look at where you feel this relationship is bumping up against these boundaries that you are working with and implementing.
Well, I guess to put it bluntly, I had stopped being intimate with him a while ago and sort of broke it off. And we went over all of the things that were a problem for moving forward. And one of the things was him not taking care of himself in a way that, I guess, for lack of better words, that I aligned with. And it's almost gotten to the point of like that I approve of. I've had to really shift my focus on my health, and it's made me realize that I want a partner who's also on that path of taking care of themselves and putting nourishing foods in their bodies and doing self-care. And I guess I am bumping up against him wondering and asking about when the intimacy is going to come back in that way. And me saying, well, you haven't even done anything yet. You haven't even like tried. At least I haven't seen it. And so I'm sort of like, am I being too rigid? Am I just saving my skin from getting involved again and having to break it off again? Yeah. There's a lot of judgment and fear, a lot of judgment on him and fear of getting involved again more.
So the word that's dropping in is values, and how these values, I see them as guideposts for our life. They're things that we are dedicated and devoted to in ourselves and in the people that we share our lives with, right? We get to choose really intentionally. And I think that when we choose based on our values, we can have the most sort of success in our endeavors, in our relationships, in our moving forward, in our path, because they give us something to anchor ourselves to. And when we're younger, Mm, there's values there, there's things, but we're more in this like, whoa, life, and we're just tumbling through and living out our karma and tangled in our past and our worries of the future and all the things. And we're in this much more expanded place. We've got a lot more energy and vitality and life force that's available to us because of our youth and because of the way that we cycle with the planet, especially as women with our moon cycles. So there's a lot more that we have to give, and there's a lot more slack that we can have in our lives. And then we start to move into our elder years, right? Or for you, not quite there yet, but you're starting in this transition where you're coming into more wisdom, more self-alignment, and you're changing. And what happens in those places is we get much more protective of our energy. We get much more protective of our life force and what we do with it and where we put it. And so it's natural that this would come up for you as you are really claiming your vitality and you're putting your heart into this, right? You're really committed to it. And I find in that place too, more of your spiritual self comes online as well. And then we really start to question who we're spending our time with. And does their commitment to their vitality and life force and their values line up with ours? And I think it becomes more and more important as the years go by. So if you think about it through that lens, what can you see in what's happening?
Hmm. In that lens, it seems pretty kind of like cut and dry. Kind of. It seems like I should just call it. Because, like, if he's never going to be that way, I'm just going to sit there watching him make, in my opinion, poor choices and being irritated every time he does. And that doesn't sound fun for either of us. But yeah, then I always go back to there's so many other valuable things that he brings to my life. And he offers everything that I'm looking for otherwise in a partner. So it's hard to have that drive for him, like that yearning for him in an intimate way if I'm not attracted to what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I understand that, right? Because as women, our attraction to another person is often stimulated by who they're being rather than just a physical interpretation. And when we're young, not so much. But as we are more mature, then that desire for them comes from a different type of intimacy. And if we're not receiving that deeper, more sort of spiritual, evolutionary, and value based intimacy, then it shifts for us. And this is intended because that sexual part of us is such a powerful part. And when we're younger, we cycle much more rapidly in a shorter, energetic place. When we're older, we start to cycle way out into the divine feminine and into other realms. And then we bring it back and we potentize it. So we have less desire in the sexual realm because of what our body and our spiritual self is coming forward. And I think we need that deeper level with people in order to still have that sexual desire be part of our relationship. Like something else becomes much more important for us.
Hmm. Yeah, I understand that. I do. And I think that on the spiritual level, I think that that's always been there for me and him. And it's been, yeah, I think it might just be the opposite of where we're going. That's what sort of has kept me intrigued by this man is our spiritual connection, our emotional connection. It's always been like astronomically amazing and awe-inspiring, honestly. but then it's just this physical aspect of, like, for instance, like, this is weird, but he produces a lot of mucus. So, like, if he's trying to physically get close to me and snuggle me, and I can hear like this auditory sound of mucus going through his airways, and it gets me on like an autistic level, and it shuts it all down for me. And I've explained this quite a few times to him, but it doesn't seem to be something he's willing to look into. And he feels like he's been like that his whole life and that he doesn't need to change. And then we argue about how that's not actually normal to produce as much mucus as he has. He's like constantly coughing and constantly blowing his nose like he has a cold 24/7. And I'm like, this isn't normal to be like this for over 3 years. And it kills me auditorily because they're just a thing in my head. That's how my brain works. Certain sounds bother the shit out of me, and that's one of them. And it's coming from this person that I love and connect deeply with, and it's interfering with physical intimacy. I feel silly for saying that, but that's like what it is.
I think you're being real, right? Like this may seem like you want to just brush it off already, but this is real for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, another helpful lens, right, to look through is the part of you that needs him to be different in order for you to feel okay. And yes, I get that there's a visceral response, but there's also a story attached to that. It's not just, okay, so I'll give this to you and then you tell me you feel for your truth in this, okay? So there's the mucus, there's his clearing his throat, there's your shutdown, your aversion to this. And then I'm imagining that after that, there's a story. Well, if only he would do this, and then he could do this. And I've talked to him and I've listened to or tried to explain it to him, and he's not willing to do anything. And the story is actually the bigger part of what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel in there when I share that?
I think the story has definitely gotten bigger than the problem. Definitely. And so, like, is that a self preservation technique, a self sabotage technique? How do I work through that?
Yeah. So I tend not to look at things as like you're sabotaging yourself. I get the concept. For me, the way I look at these parts of us, right, is there's this part of us that is crying out for our attention. And we've put these mechanisms in place that help soothe us, even though they wouldn't appear like as we're talking about it, you're like, what? That's not soothing. I don't even like this part. Yet ultimately, right underneath, this is how you learn to soothe. This is how you learn to navigate territory that makes you feel uncomfortable, territory that you have no control over. Because here's this man just doing his thing, living his life, and you're uncomfortable about the way he's doing it. So, this part of you is desperately trying to protect you from the uncomfortableness. And then on top of that, we start wishing away this part because we don't like it. And then in that is where we get stuck and where we start to spin and where we don't understand and we can't see the path forward. So I'm curious what you know about the parts of you that you wish would go away.
I think that a big part of something I wish would go away is the judgment and yeah, that whole story. Like, I understand that he is a person living his life, and I understand that on a visceral level. And that it is unfair to like even ask these things, or at least I believe they are. But also in learning that it's okay to want things and speak up for those things that I want. Is it that? Is it more that, or is it the story? Because I'm not used to speaking up. I'm not used to asking for what I want.
Yeah. And I want to validate you in that, right? That in relationship, especially in intimate relationships, we get to have conversations about those things. Like it's important. You don't just pretend, right? That it's going to be okay or it's real for you. And so having the harder conversations is going to create a deeper connection and a deeper relationship. What I find helpful, right, is so this part of you, this judgment part, if we are judging someone else, that initially stems from a judgment within us. There's a part of you that is judging you. And then that gets projected outward onto whatever wants to come along that is going to take the blame so that you can then distract yourself from the way you're actually judging yourself underneath it all. Because it's much easier to focus on him and his problems than it is to look at this part of you that is really giving you a hard time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and the way I love to look at this, right? He's giving you this incredible gift because it's inviting a deeper part of you to come alive. And for me, we're intended to live fully alive. And what that means is being willing to be with every part of ourselves and include every part of ourselves, not just the parts that we like and want to show to the world, but especially the parts that we try to shove in the closet. So, a practice I love, right, is that anytime someone else invokes a feeling or a thought or something inside of me, I take it as a gift. And I decide that this has absolutely nothing to do with them and everything to do with me. And then I go hunting and exploring and find out why. And I investigate this part, right? That is crying out for your attention. It just is doing it the wrong way. It's trying to make it about someone else. And the more that you hunt for those places, the more you use these external situations and influences to explore your own landscape, the more freedom you have from what other people are doing. Because it sounds to me like in the way that you've shared things that you do deeply love this man. And there's a lot of things about him that you're not ready to say goodbye to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard to say goodbye to this great man that makes a lot of noise with his nose.
And I know you probably know this and have experienced this, but it's like what you focus on gets so much louder.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I'd be curious, right? If you start focusing on the part of you that's like throwing a temper tantrum when he's making noises, I wonder if you can make that temper tantrum inside you more focused on you. And I wonder how much quieter his noises will actually appear to you.
Mhm. All right, I'll try that.
Yeah, it's really freeing. And I think even if you ultimately decide that, you know what, it is correct for us to go our separate ways, the more you can use what unnerves you and makes you uncomfortable in this relationship and use the opportunity to nurture the parts inside yourself that are struggling with his actions, the less likely you will be to recreate them in your next relationship, right? Because there's a really good chance that you leave him and your next man is even louder. Because the universe is like, sweetheart, your soul is asking for this. And it obviously wasn't loud enough last time. So we'll try harder this time.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Harvest all the gold that you can before you make your decision. The word that's dropping back in is problem, right? Like when you described it, it was a problem. And so there's some teachings around problems that he is not the one with the problem. because he obviously, if it's 3 years and he hasn't changed it, or it's been his whole life and he hasn't changed it, it's not a problem for him.
Hmm.
You are the one that has a problem.
Hmm.
And so that's a super empowering place because you can do something about it because it's entirely within your control because it's your problem. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on what we've been sharing about and where you're landing.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely hitting the point because I'm finding myself throwing in a lot of yeah, but, and arguing a little bit with what's being said.
I love your honesty.
There's that resistance, which makes me think, oh God, she's onto something. And that that would be a good thing to practice before completely throwing in the towel and moving on to try to find someone quieter, maybe a little more healthy. But yeah, that feels like that'll be a real fun therapy session later this week.
Yeah. And the way I see it, right? It's like what you're showing me. It's worthwhile unpacking this now because then when you do decide what you're doing, it's a clearer decision. It's based on real truth and boundaries as opposed to perceived ones. So it's almost like if you run away now, you haven't completed the lesson, the why you were in this relationship. It's like you're pulling the plug early. There's like this extra piece here that's available for you. And you might go through this and then still decide that, you know what? It doesn't affect me the same way anymore. That judgment piece, I can just see him for the divine being that he is. And it's still not okay with me that he doesn't value his health. But at least you're making that choice. Like I feel you grounded in your body, able to make that choice from a true place. As opposed to if you make the choice right now, there's more like a flighty feeling of like, oh, I'm just going to run because it's too uncomfortable for me to deal with this. And it's just, no, I'm not. So, very different ability in you to discern and decide. And this is such a valuable place. This tool, this gift, right, of giving yourself true decision will go through your entire life. It's a life skill. It's a place of turning towards yourself, of developing your intuition, of increasing this place in you that can discern rather than just run away.
Yes, that would be very nice.
Well, how can I support you from here?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know how to ask for support. I don't know. I mean, I think we've given me a lot to think about and work with for now.
And does this feel like an okay place to land today?
It does. It does. Thank you for your time today and care,
Yeah, thank you for being willing to explore this.
of course. It's part of the work.